Shalom, people. This is Brother Lyles coming at you with another video. And we have had this thought that's been going through our mind now for the last 6 months. Just dealing with a lot of stuff that we call our black culture, our Hebrew culture that we supposedly brought with us here. But if you have been watching any of my videos for any length of time the last couple of years, you know my thoughts that a lot of stuff that we have as black people, Hebrew people, was influenced by other tribes that were pagan, but because we were so intimately connected with them that we adopted some of that into our own and made it our own, really never was something that the Most High Yah told us to do. I can remember clearly a few years ago when I was studying about jumping the broom. I was I was looking at reading through a little short article about where did the custom of jumping the broom came from. And I'm thinking, okay, well, it was started by the slaves. Come to find out, it was started by the Vikings. It's a Norse custom that was brought here. And somehow, I don't know if the masters of the plantation introduced it to the slaves as a quick way for them to get back to work. Like, okay, slaves, jump the broom and then pick up the broom and keep working. That's kind of what I kind of think of it. But honestly, I'm not saying it's bad if you know, because me and my wife jumped the broom when we got married. So I'm not telling you as black people you need to stop jumping the broom but I'm just trying to tell you, know the origins of what stuff that you're doing and not, go to bat so hard for it. And then you come to realize, man, it didn't really have anything to do with us. So we want to talk about just a little bit today. And the title of our lesson is Learn Not the Way of the Heathens. Jeremiah 10:1 says this, Hear ye the word which the Master speaketh unto you, O house of Yasharel. Thus saith the Master, Learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with the axe. And we're not going to go any further than that because we know, our views and thoughts on Christmas and Easter and all these things. And if you look at our over 400 something videos, we have videos talking about all of that. We have videos talking about how Easter's pagan, Christmas, a lot of these other holidays, Halloween, we got it. But we want to go into a lot of things that are everyday that we as black people, Hebrew people, in particular dealing with religion, that we have poured into ourselves in the last 100 or so years. We want to talk about that. We want to talk about some of the ways that we do things, the way we some of the thoughts that we have. Are these original things that we brought here with us, or were we influenced along the way, like it is with the jumping of the broom thing, where we took that as our own? But like I just got to tell you, it was not a thing from our people that we brought over. It was given to us. Let's go to the book of First Kings, and we're gonna try to take our key thought from the book of First Kings, the 18th chapter, talking about learn not the ways of the heathen. First Kings 18:17. And it says, it came to pass when Ahab saw Elijah, that Ahab said unto him, art thou he that troubleth Israel? And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, in that ye have forsaken the commandments of the master, and thou hast followed Balaam. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel, and the prophets of Baal 450, and the prophets of the grove 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. So Ahab sent unto all the children of Yasharel, and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, how long halt ye between two opinions? If the master be Yahuwah, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not a word. Then said Elijah unto the people, even I only, remain a prophet of the master. But Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bullocks, and let them choose 1 bullock for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. And I will dress the other bullock, and lay it on wood, and put no fire under. And call ye on the name of your Elohims, and I will call on the name of the master. And the Elohim that answered by fire, let him be Elohim. And all the people answered and said, it is well spoken. And Elijah said unto the prophets of Baal, choose you 1 bullock for yourselves, and dress it first, for ye are many, and call on the name of your gods, but put no fire under. And they took the bullock which was given them, and they dressed it, and called on the name of Baal from morning, evening until noon, saying, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered. And they leaped upon the altar which was made. And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, cry aloud, for he is a Elohim. Either he is talking, or he is pursuing, or he is in a journey, or peradventure he sleepeth and must be awaked. And they cried aloud, and cut themselves after their manner, or their custom, with knives and lances, till the blood gushed out upon them. And it came to pass, when midday was past, and they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice, there was neither voice, nor any to answer, nor any that regarded. Here we have 2 forms of worship that were on display here. One from the Canaanite worshippers of Balaam, and one from the true prophet of Elijah. and we see the contrast. We see the situation that the people of the northern kingdom of Israel, which was the ones that broke away from Judah and Benjamin in the southern kingdom, they quickly went into idolatry after the kingdom split, and they made their capital city Samaria, and they set up golden calves as their as Yah. They said this is the Elohims that brought you up out of the land of Egypt. So they was already heading in that direction. But Ahab turned it up a notch by marrying a Canaanite, because the Phoenicians were Hamitic people. Jezebel, his wife, was the daughter of the king of the Zidonians, and so she brought along with her the Canaanite worship of Baal and perfected it in the northern kingdom, so much so that they were already off with the golden calf thing, that they got even further off by saying that just, Baal and Yah are not any different in our minds. And so as I was doing this study, and we've talked about this a little bit, dealing with the language, because before the kingdoms even split, before Judah, Benjamin, them had even split, we know during the Judges period that the Canaanites were not utterly destroyed like Yah told them to. And he told them that if they didn't do it, they would be a thorn in their side. And that's what ended up happening. You can see that clearly in the book of Judges. You can see clearly that even David himself, when David came into power, that's a lot of what he was doing, was trying to mop up, finish up what had not been done during Joshua's or Yeshua's campaign throughout the part of the promised land that Yah said. Because we understand that little slither is not all the land that they had, but understand proportionality. It never was that all the land that Yah had promised Abraham, that's what they was going to get right off the bat in the first couple of 100 years. Not just because of the population situation, because you need people to populate in that area, right? But also for the fact that if you didn't get that first key part out of the way of driving all of the Canaanites out, which you didn't, then that is definitely going to delay. And that's what you see when David came along. The Bible talked about him and Joab going all the way to Euphrates River. They was doing what they was doing what Phineas, the high priest, and Joshua, Yeshua was not able to accomplish, because the people first got deceived by some of the Canaanite tribes, the Gibeonites, into signing an agreement not to destroy them. And so now you had this slow intermingling, so much so that even when you look at the book of Ruth, what was happening? That the people were going over into Moab. Even though Moab was their cousins, they was into idolatry. Now we know a good thing came out of that with Ruth, no doubt about it. When she said to Naomi, "Your Elohim is gonna be my Elohim." That was a good thing, but I don't believe that was the norm. I'm believing that the Hebrew men and women that went over there, more than likely, were being pulled into the worship of Shamash, And those that was being drawn to the Ammonites, they was being drawn to whatever gods or Elohims they had, and there was a syncretism, a syncretism of the language. Because when we read some of the, I'm gonna give you some articles that you need to go read yourself. But we're gonna see that this has always been a problem with our people, is that we have always had a problem with learning the ways of the heathen and then bringing them in and making them into our own. And this is what the situation that you had here with Elijah, where Yah was clearly showing you the syncretism is so bad that I have to do this. I have to bring this thing to a climax here on Mount Carmel, and there's gonna have to be some shedding of blood in order for it to happen, because we gotta contrast these two different things. And the reason I want to talk about these things, because I'm thinking about some of the things that okay, for those of you that are still in the Christian church, some of you that are in these Hebrew assemblies, some of you that have home Bible studies and stuff different like that, you better study to show yourself approved unto Yah, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth, or being led by the Holy Spirit, because there's so much stuff out here. You know my thoughts on some of this stuff that some of our people who are into the understanding of who we are as Hebrews, what I believe a lot of them, some of them are ending up in this Talmudic thing, because they're saying, oh, well, this is our, I'm telling you, we're all over the place. We do. And this is why a lot of Caucasian people don't believe, so much so that, hey, they are the people, because they have seen in the past how we sometimes do try to take on things that are not ours. But understanding that there are things that we did naturally, that if you equate what you read in the Bible, you can clearly see, oh yeah, that is a thing that they came over here with and that they did, and that we can see in the Bible. But it was some things that we brought with us that we were doing that were customs of the heathens, the ways of the heathens, and we got to be able to situate them. And one of the things that I always kind of felt was, when you had this thing of what we would do with our style of worship, and we have a thing where people say, well, white people, they're real quiet and they don't get alive like us. They're not doing all, they're kind of dead or whatever. And I sat back and I thought about when I was, in Christianity in particular. I was, Pentecostalism, and I would see some of the outrageous stuff that I would see there, and I even hear stories. I remember it was really crazy. I remember it was one service, and somebody was testifying about how they had this church mother or something, that she was quote unquote shouting on the pulpit, and she shouted her way off the I'm just telling you what was told. I never seen this, but it was crazy. They said she shouted her way off the podium, but she was shouting. If you looked at her, she was shouting in the air. She was basically floating as she was doing a little praise dance. She praise danced right off the podium, and instead of her falling down on the ground, they said she was floating in the air shouting. I was like, that sounds like witchcraft to me. If a person is floating above the air off the ground, still dancing or shouting. It sounds like some kind of occult stuff is going on. But this brings me to what you see in this scene going on with Elijah. And so I wanted to look at some of the religious practices and beliefs of the Canaanites. So I read over some articles, and one of the articles that I read from was coming from the Bible Chat. It was an article called "What Were the Religious Practices and Beliefs of the Canaanites?" And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I want to read this part right here. This is the third paragraph down. He said, another prominent deity in the Canaanite pantheon was Baal, a storm and fertility god that played a central role in their religious practices. Baal was often depicted as a warrior god, yielding a thunderbolt, and was believed to control rain and agriculture for fertility, which were critical for the agrarian society of Canaan. The worship of Baal, included rituals to ensure agriculture success, such as sacrifices and festivals. This worship often involved elaborate ceremonies and was sometimes accompanied by morally questionable practices, including ritual prostitution and child sacrifice, which were condemned in the biblical text. And I think about the worship in a lot of our black churches. I know back after slavery, definitely, when some of those churches started, they started poor. They probably started in a slave cabin. It was simple. They was just glad to be free. There was not a lot of pretense. People didn't have suits and ties and all that. They just had the clothes on their back or overalls. So I can see, that our people coming out of slavery, it was probably simple. But as our people start gaining knowledge and our people started emulating the white churches and also going according to the dictates of the white missionaries that came down here and was teaching them out of the Bible in these former slave cabins, that they started taking on the ceremonialism, or even indeed before that, when you had some of the black churches in the north, like the AME and AME Zion churches, which they had to separate from the Methodists because the Methodists didn't want them to no longer black and white, worship together. But they took the formalism and all these different things, this elaborateness of these worship that the white churches had, and they just put their black spin on it. And you see that it says this was a custom of the Canaanites to have this elaborateness in the worshipness, where you had to go through all of this stuff, like, okay, we got the marching of the preachers. We have the seating of the deacons. We got the seating of the mothers. We got the seating of the this, and we got the giving honor to this one, and we got giving honor to this one, and then we got this offering for this, and we got this offering. We just make it so elaborate, and you think about the time and the effort that is really left for y'all. If you are still, I understand that the whole system is, understand what I'm saying, the whole system is not of the Most High, y'all, but I'm at least saying that could some element of it be, at least some portion of it be given to Yah? But when you think about especially when I was as a minister, the thing of the prayer and the salutations and the announcements and all this stuff, and you just come to find out that a lot of it has very little to do with Yah. Yah is there in name only, but the elaborateness of it is that we know what we're doing, and Yah forbid when our black people start getting into the Catholic garb, when they started putting on those collars and getting those shepherd crooks and all this other kind of stuff. This is a Canaanite practice. This is the ways of the heathen that we are dealing with, and we don't understand it. We don't understand this was a way of the Canaanites, but we have made it into our own. We have made it into our own. Reading on here, it said religious practices among the Canaanites were deeply integrated into their daily lives. Temples and high places were central to their worship, serving as sites for sacrifices and offerings to the Elohims or gods. These places were often located or on elevated ground, reflecting a common ancient belief that being physically closer to the heavens brought one nearer to the divine. The Bible frequently refers to these high places in its accounts of Israel history, often in the context of idolatry and apostasy. So when you come into the black neighborhoods, where do you see the quote-unquote houses of worship? They're normally on the best plots of land. They're normally just out there just taking up space, whatever. Because that building in Canaanite culture, so like, this is how we're going to reach Yah. And it's the same way in our black communities. What do you hear about black communities? There's a church on what? Every corner. But yet you have all kinds of crazy sin and stuff that's going on. But people say, we got churches though. We got churches on every corner. But in that, outside of that building now, it don't matter if Yah's presence or whatever is not there. But once you go in that building now, you good. But when you go out there in that parking lot, we got security that's watching your cars now, so they won't get broke into, because we know that the only place that Yah can be located is when you go into that building. Forget that on it, maybe a block away, there's another church building. There's another high place there where we can reach Yah. We can reach him here, but we can't reach him there. Well, we can't reach him in your home. You come here to this home. This is your home away, but we can't affect any change in your home. This is Canaanite stuff, where we put the focus on that one building. This is the ways of the heathen. That's why Yah, if you look at it, he only had one temple that they went to during periodic time. But throughout the year, they had to live the life within whatever village or place they were. Now, don't get me wrong, they had local priests that they could go build an altar and offer a burnt sacrifice or sin sacrifice or whatever. They didn't have to necessarily wait. But as for a temple, they only had one temple when our people were in. They didn't have all this stuff. Now we know later on synagogues came along as a kind of like a community place where people would come, and we know Paul, they said Paul then went there on Sabbath to read the scriptures or whatever. But overall, it was only one temple. But in this Canaanite thing, right, he said it was temples everywhere. Temples everywhere. Let's go to the high place. Let's go high. And indeed, when you, a lot of times when you would see when the Hebrew kings would come in and try to reform the people, most of the time they would go and they would destroy the high places. And they said, no, there's one place that Yah has chosen to for his name to be, and that's where you come and bring your offering. But because say our people devolved into Canaanite worship, as I just got through reading, you find that they had many high places, and y'all said, nah, I don't want that. But we find that in the black community, like I said, church on every corner, but there's all kinds of sin and degradation that's going on around, because as long as the high place is there, you go in there, you okay. But when you step outside, it's a different story, right? It said here also, he said the Canaanite religion was also marked by its use of symbolism and iconography. Idols and figurines were prevalent, serving as tangible representations of the Elohims. These objects were believed to possess the presence of the deity, making them focal points of worship and veneration. The Israelites struggle against idolatry is a recurring theme in the Old Testament, highlighting the transition between the monotheistic worship of Yahweh and the polytheistic practices of the surrounding cultures, right? When we go into the thing of the stained glass windows with the pictures of Yah and pictures of Yeshua, the white Jesus and the black Jesus and all these other kind of things, and the sacred table. Don't you know, when you go into the churches and you have the thing in this, remember, or you have the thing that have the candles and it's got IHS, and I don't understand to this day how people don't know that stands for Isis, Horus, and Set or whatever. But they have these things in here, these focal points. And I always used to wonder sometimes, you know, when I would go up for prayer, we would have a prayer meeting, we'd have all night prayer, and it would be like, man, I really feel Yah, and then all of a sudden it's a crazy thought coming to my mind. I'm like, man, how is it that if we in this place, and that's not said when you praying at home it don't happen, but I'm saying you supposed to be in a quote unquote house of Yah. How is all this? Would you understand all the stuff that was, first of all, just the concept of it anyway, being there. And then you had the Penis of Baal, which was the church steeple, the spire, the obelisk, which is reincarnation through sex. And then you had the stained glass with the images. He said, don't make no image of anything in heaven above and earth below. Then you think about, like I said, those candlestick holders that had the IHS on it that stand for Isis, Horus, and I think Set or something like that. And you had all the other stuff. You had the communion, which the communion was never a little wafer thing with juice. It was actual meal that people would eat, but we turned it into the blood of Jesus. Don't you touch that. Don't you touch that. You dropped Jesus on the ground. You dropped his blood. No, he said, do this in remembrance of me. He said, this is not actually me. He said, before you even take it, he said, you must have considered yourself. But we turned it into some kind of magical thing. I can remember when it said, okay, shh, all y'all, shh, bring forth the elements. And then you start understanding, man, it's no different than what the Catholics doing with the transubstantiation, where they say we actually believe that this is the body and blood of Yeshua. That in practice, our people were doing that too. Protestants were starting to do that too, where they say, hey, this is the actual body and blood. He said, no, do this in remembrance of me. He said, often as you do it, you remember me, but it is not his actual blood. He said, it is not his actual body. He said, it is a thing of remembering. And in obedience, that is what he's talking about. When you understand, you look at yourself and say, you know what? Am I understanding that I'm living the life that he died for? And if not, I'm not taking the communion, not so much because, oh, you taking the elements with it. It's a thing of obedience. And see how we have made it into some magical, mystical thing. And people, don't touch that table. That's the table where the communion was set at. When at one time, that was not no custom. That was something that was brought up later. What the custom was it was it's more like a potluck. That's where I was made to understand it. It was more like a potluck meal, and they would sit and they would eat and drink and talk about. That's why Paul said, if you come into the communion, it's not for you to get full. It's supposed to be like a little quick snack. And we sit there and say, you know what? I can remember when we was at the Last Supper and Yeshua was telling us this, and he talked about, you say, I'm going to a place you can't go, but where I go, I'm going to send back another. And that's what you were supposed to sit there and do. And if you wasn't right, then you wasn't supposed to sit down and be in fellowship with the other people, because if you wasn't in fellowship with Yeshua the right way, then how can you be in fellowship with your brothers and sisters in Yah? It was time for you of a reflection, but we took over from what Catholicism did and made it into some magical, mystical thing, which is not a custom of the thing, which was ended up being a custom of the heathens again. That they would put the focal point on things, on the communion table, on the communion cups, on the communion wafers, on the candlesticks, on the stained glass windows, on the pulpit, on the carpet. Don't you go up there in that pulpit. And I understand what I'm saying. It's just a sign of respect if you coming into some place that you ain't going to be running all over the place or whatever. I understand it, but I'm saying they was making it seem like it was some magical, mystical place. And then when you come to find out sometimes later that it would be crooked people doing some wicked, evil stuff in some of these same places, or don't you go in the pastor's office now? That's a sacred place. That's where and you would come to understand that these people were doing some wicked and diabolical things in there. And you say, is this a custom? This is something that we are supposed to follow after we have so denuded and downgraded this thing. But now, for those that are coming out of Christianity, going into this Hebrew thing, they're taking it up even a notch higher. And so I'm just, it's just enough. But that's enough of that article. I want to also look at this right here. The cutting and Canaanite worship. And so you remember reading what I read in 1 Kings, where it was talking about how when they start calling, on Baal, they start cutting themselves. And they say all this, they start screaming and they start shouting and they start cutting themselves. And I start thinking about us as black people, as Hebrew people, especially when Pentecostalism and stuff came along. And to be honest, no one can say that when Azusa came that you could ever really remember any excerpts. And I got a book. I'm gonna do a video on it one day. You never really remember them talking about anybody quote unquote shouting or anything. Now I'm saying my understanding of when Azusa happened, that these people were actually speaking languages when they talked about when they was filled with the Holy Spirit, that they actually were speaking languages that people that was from all over the world there could understand. It wasn't this stuff that you see Paula White and all these other crazy people that are MAGA people now that are associated with this crazy MAGA stuff doing. And she talking about the African angels and all that. It wasn't that. But that's a story for another day. But that you seen one of the things that the Canaanites was doing. They said they was doing a lot of yelling and screaming and yelling. Yeah, bah, 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 please answer. Please send the fire down. And he said when that didn't happen, then they start cutting themselves. And what do you find about cutting in Canaanite religion? He said the ancient Canaanite religion practiced by the people living in the coastal and inland regions of Levant during the Bronze Age and early Iron Age is a rich tapestry of deities, rituals, and beliefs that have influenced many subsequent cultures and religions. Among those practices, cutting or self-mutilation holds an intriguing practice in both a ritualistic act and a symbol of devotion. So you find that they were bringing self abuse on themselves, and I can clearly remember when we were it's this church we was in New York, and it was this one guy. He was going to our church, and I just say that he was dealing with LGBTQ. So anyway, apparently he was trying. He was trying to quote unquote be delivered, but because he said that the devil was trying to make him kill himself. So he was getting ready to. And I remember because I was one of the ones that had to try to hold him. He was getting ready to run. It was the nursery, and the nursery had this big glass. He was getting ready to run headlong into that nursery glass to cut himself. So we had to hold him because he was trying to kill himself. Then he broke free, and then he tried to run outside because the church was right beside this highway. He was going to try to run out there. Now he's supposed to be trying to get delivered, right? Shouting and doing all this crazy shouting. He was trying to run out there into the traffic and get hit. I said, something is wrong here. And I've seen other stuff. We've seen other stuff where people would, be shouting or whatever, and they would fall and get hurt. And of course, the famous one with Benny Hinn years ago in Oklahoma, where it was an old lady. Something happened. I don't know. They say he pushed her, or she was in the quote unquote spirit or whatever. She fell and broke her hip, and she got infected, and the infection never went away. She died, and her family sued, I think, Benny Hinn Ministries. I think that's when he had the Orlando Christian Center or something. And I think they won a couple $1 million off of that. You see what I'm saying? This thing of wounds and different things during worship, it's not of the Most High Yah. It is not of the Most High Yah. These wounds in worship. No, Yah is not. Okay, I'll put it this way. There was an incident in the book of Acts where Paul was preaching for a long time, and they said it was a young man sitting in the window. He must have been in a second level. And they said he basically fell asleep. And he fell asleep and fell off the loft, and he died. And Paul had to come out there and lay hands on him and heal him, and then brought him back to life. But other than that, you don't see anything where you see within, even on the day of Pentecost. The Bible said on the day of Pentecost, they were sitting in the place. They were not running in, because I've seen it. I've seen it in some of these churches where people be running into each other. They be falling. You see some of the quote unquote videos. They have channels out there where they showcase this stuff, where people be falling off the pulpits. People be running into each other. People's pants be splitting and all kinds of stuff. People be pole dancing and all this kind of stuff, and falling on their head and all this. I'm like, this sounds like this is some kind of Canaanite stuff. And let's go even further. Let's go even further with the cutting thing. Self-mutilation, cutting. But let's go, and I'm going to go there. We're going to go there. What is tattooing? What is tattooing? And I got somewhere I'm going with this. I really do have somewhere I'm going with this. And some of you are going to probably either unsubscribe or say, I don't know what I'm talking about. But what is tattooing? But cutting into the skin. It said here, let's read this. when it dealt with the cutting. It says, where is it at? Yeah. The practice of cutting. One of the more dramatic and lesser understood practices in Canaanite ritual life was cutting or self-mutilation. This act is mentioned in various historical and biblical texts, often in the context of mourning, supplication, or as part of a sacrificial ritual. The practice involved making incisions on the body to demonstrate one's purity, commitment, or to invoke the favor of the gods, right? And when you think about this Christian tattoo movement that came, because at one time it was no question that not just in Christianity, but that the ordinary people was not even messing with tattoos. Ordinary people on the street was not messing with tattoos. The people that was dealing with tattoos were biker gangs, people that had been in prison, because I remember a family member that I had that they had a prison tattoo that they said they had, and they told us how they did it and all that. People that were in the military, and then people of other religions. That's who you would see having tattoo. There was no question about the general public. But what happened? It started, yes. It started as a thing of, oh yeah, and those that are in gangs, of course, which is motorcycle gang period. Yeah, that. And so what you had is somehow in sports and entertainment, it got an appeal. And once it got an appeal, because America is Babylon and Christianity is associated with Babylonianism, it takes things in order to draw people in. So one of the things that came about was these people that say, I want to be born again, but I like having my tattoos. Why? Because what did he say? Those that were in mourning, supplication, or part of a sacrificial ritual. Because I want to display my love for Yah by getting my arm tattoo with the 91st Psalm. Or I want to put this big Gaelic cross on my arm. Or I want to put this a picture, a black or white, you sure it don't matter, on my arm to show my what? That it to appease the Elohims. I've seen people that were Catholic that had the prayer beads tattooed on their hands. They say, let's do this. This is Canaanite stuff. But now it is an actual religion. I actually went and I looked at, they had these sites. They had these Christian tattoo things. And they said, show their enthusiasm for Yah by getting these tattoos, right? And basically making it like it's not just a thing. This is a good thing. They said this is a good thing. This is a good thing for you to put this stuff on your body. When I'm telling you right here, this is Canaanites. Now we concentrate on the Canaanites. It's not only them, but we concentrate on the fact where our people came from. So this is not nothing new. The cutting of the skin. In fact, let's go to Mark 5, just to prove my point. Let's go to Mark 5:1. Okay, and we're gonna get back to Mark 5:1. But let me continue on this thing about the Christian tattoo. Now, it was an article, and when you get a chance, you can Google it. It was a online article I read on Psychology Today, and the name of the article was 5 Ways Tattoos Can Help People Heal. June 29th, 2021, and it was written by this psychologist, medical educator, Venata Mata. She her name looks so like she might be from India or one of those places like that, where obviously they definitely are dealing with a lot of stuff. But it talks about those that are in mourning. So you have these quote unquote Christians that are, when somebody passes, they say, I'm going to get to their picture and I'm going to have front passes, born this day, passes day, and they're going through mourning. They say instead of just mourning where you normally, we're going to mourn by getting the tattoo or by the birth. And by us doing this, not only are we honoring Yah, but we're also honoring the dead. What was another custom dealing with Canaanite religion, worship was strong, not just veneration of their ancestors, but I'm talking about a strong grab hold that the ancestors is the one that's going to, along with Balaam, they're going to help us do this. So the strong veneration of that, where they get this stuff. This again is Canaanite stuff. This is Canaanite stuff that, and unfortunately, I'm not saying that our people are the only one doing, because obviously you can see in different things where you got people with all these crazy piercings now, piercings all over for Yahshua, getting pierced in their near their eyebrows, and their, now understand this. I know people they use Isaiah, the first chapter, I think, where he talks about all the stuff that the Hebrew women wore with the nose rings and all these things. But I'm here to tell you, I don't know. I don't know. There's just so much stuff that I don't think people are listening to the Holy Spirit, and so once you open up that door, like I said, now you got people. So how are you gonna turn around? When you start seeing these people that have the spikes underneath they get the spikes coming up through their skulls and all these things, and they say that they're doing this for the quote unquote Lord. I don't believe this is Canaanite stuff, and we don't want to deal with it, but it's demonic. It's demonic. I'm gonna show you why. Not just what we seen in 1 Kings 18 with Elijah and the prophets of Baal and of the groves doing it, but here in Mark 5:1, starting in verse 1, he said, when they, talking about Yeshua and his disciples, came over the other side of the sea into the country of the Gadarenes. Now, Gadarene, remember when they was coming into the land, that Gad and Reuben had said, you know what, this land on the other side of the Jordan before we get into Israel is land for cattle, and we want to be cattle raisers. So we want to stay on this side of the Jordan, and so we want to build a monument so that we can remember that we are associated with y'all on the other side of the Jordan. We just chose to stay on this side. By the time of Yeshua's time, all those people, they had not just them, of course, because in Israel they all got mixed up with the Canaanites really bad. But these people in the country of the Gadarenes, these were the descendants of Gad and Reuben. They was totally pagan, and you're gonna see why. He said when he was, and there came unto the other side of the sea into the country of the Gadarenes. And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling amongst the tombs, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because he had been bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the feathers broken in pieces. neither could any man tame him. And always, day and night, he was in the mountains and in the tombs crying and what? Cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Yeshua afar off, he ran and worshipped him and cried with a loud voice and said, what have I to do with thee, Yeshua, thou son of the Most High? Yah, I adjure thee by Yah, that thou torment me not. For he said unto him, come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. And he asked him, what is thy name? He said, my name is Legion, because for we are many. He came and worshiped Yeshua. He said, oh, you son of the high. But he was full of demons. I'm telling you. This stuff is outrageous. This is how we got to the open LGBTQ thing. This is how we got to the transgender thing in these worship. This is how we got there. This is how we got into polygamy and polygyny. This is how we got into this. Oh, I can call name all I want, but I'm full of the devil, full of legion, because that's 1,000. So that means you can be who? Oh yeah, I'm gonna be nice little Christian man here, and I say, oh yeah, but I got another spirit in me, one of 999 that's left that could tear you up like a ravenous wolf, because it's so many of them. I mean, I'm just sitting here cutting myself day and night, and you hear people, I will hear people say, man, I love y'all, and on payday, man, I'm going to get the whole backside of me covered. I'm like, I don't see that. I don't see that in scripture. Where is that? You got whole men, and not only I understand if you came to Yeshua like that, you know that was before, but I'm talking about you doing it, and you're not just doing, you promoting it. You got a whole ministry. Like we're going down there and you gonna get this scripture here. Bible said that's Canaanite stuff, cutting Canaanite, and it's showing in psychology that most of the time, when people do that, it's therapeutic to them, but it's not so much therapeutic. It is the demons like self-mutilation. They like you to mutilate your flesh. They don't want you to look the way that Most High Yah created you. Why do you think you see in some of these nations, like African nations and stuff, where people are going to we call it extreme, even though you don't think tattooing is extreme, but you just got these people that go over to Russian nations where they specialize in being able to strip their melanin out of their skin by letting them take gasoline baths to pull the melanin out of their skin so they can be white. And you say, oh, that's of the devil. And you don't think that you doing all that stuff. And so, oh, I love and you can clearly see it a lot of times. Sometimes when you look at some of these videos and stuff of people from, and you like, they look kind of light, but the shape of the thing just don't, something is off. And then you hear that they have these high rates of cancer, or even like the stuff you see in some Jamaican places, or even in India and other places, because this is mutilation, and this is not of the Most High. This is Canaanite religion, and our people have taken on this stuff and said, hey, this is what we had taken on, not understanding this is of Canaanite influence. It's one book that you gotta get, and it was too long for me to sit here and try to read it to you, but it's called Canaanite Influence on the Religion of Israel by some guy called Louis B. Patton, and it's in the Journal of Religion in April 1914 from the American Journal of Theology. And in it, he talks about starting back when they was not able to force the Canaanites out like they were supposed to, that slowly they start melding into each other, and you even start seeing where Israel will start putting the name of Baal in the name of some of their people's names, like Gideon, Jerubbaal, Jerubbaal. That was his name. Gideon, Jerubbaal. They was paying homage to Baal because they had allowed the Canaanite culture to be more of an influence. So that by the time that, like I said, the two kingdoms split, and then one was taken into captivity, and Judah was going to be taken into captivity by that. It was a lot of Canaanite stuff in there because some of them Canaanite tribes had so melded in, like Gibeah, that when Saul destroyed them, Yah punished them because they had made that agreement with them that they would always be protected. And David, Yah said, I'm punishing Israel because of what they did to this Canaanite tribe, because you did make an agreement with them that you would protect them. And they had so melted. And this is what has happened with our people. We have taken on some things that we believe is ours, and they're not. We have made them ours, but they're just like this thing that we did when we was in the land. We learned the ways of the heathen, and they became ours. Leviticus 18 and 30, and then we're going to end. It says this. It says, therefore shall ye keep my ordinance, that ye commit not any one of these abominable customs which were committed before you, and that ye defile not yourself therein. I am the master your Elohim. And if you read the whole 18th chapter of Leviticus, it talks to you some of the stuff that the Canaanite people in that land were doing, that if you go back and look, some of these practices our people started. Why do you think y'all had to get Jacob and his people out of Canaan into Egypt? Because you can see what was going on while they was there, all the stuff that was going on because the Canaanites. And we made a video last year about it. Which we're going to link to this video that you need to go back and look at. This thing is strong, and it is all about the outward appearance. It's all about the grandiose when it comes to dealing with worship and all these different things. And that's one of the things that our people equate to, hey, we had church, we was running around banging into walls with each other, man. We was, all this other kind of stuff. I'm telling you, this is, it's not of the Most High Yah. A lot of it, if you evaluate it, why do you think, and it's not just us as black men, but now they're saying that every year the amount of men that are not participating in this thing called Christianity, the religion, is off the charts, because we see that because men are logical, women are emotional, and some of these emotional things can get you stirred. Now you can be an emotional man, and you might see some of them in there doing some of that stuff, and that's why you find a lot of effeminate men in there. But yeah, anybody with a brain cell would say, they hyping you up, and then at the end they say, okay, now get that checkbook ready. We need you to write that $100, 500,000, whatever. They got that hype up, and this is what you see that was happening in 1 Kings, the 18th chapter. They was trying to get hyped up. They thought this was gonna, appease they God Baal. They cut themselves, and the fire never came. So they didn't hear. But what did Elijah do? He prayed. He didn't do all that. He wasn't running around he wasn't saying, hey, let's run around the offer, let's run around the sacrifice 30 times. And then he said no. He said he prayed, and Yah sent the fire to burn up not only the offering but the stones, the ground, the water, everything. without all that screaming, hollering, cutting, all of that. Because Yah is a prayer answering Elohim. So with that, I want to ask you to give this video a thumbs up. I want you to leave a comment. I want you to subscribe. I want you to stop learning the ways of the heathens. Research everything and make sure what you're doing is not something that's was gonna put you in more bondage than a lot. Be blessed.